Hello, tonight on Business Live, Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana begins meeting to review the economy. Businesses call for reduction of taxes in the mid-year budget review scheduled for next week. We have details from the Joy Business Pre-Budget Forum.
I want to see some abolished and some review. One is the e-levy. I think that the rate is too high. The other one has to do with the COVID tax. I don't know why we still have COVID tax or COVID levy as part of our tax structure.
Plus, Economist Professor Godfrey reiterates call to reduce size of government and redirect resources to critical sectors of the economy. Thanks so much for your company. I am Pius Kojobaka. Let's now settle for the details. And the Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana is today expected to begin meeting to review developments in the economy over the past 2 weeks. But what are the issues that will dominate the gathering? George Yafi has more. The Monetary Policy Committee of the Bank of Ghana should have met on Wednesday, July 19, 2023, that is tomorrow. However, Joy Business is learning that the meeting started today. It is not clear for now what influenced the change in date. But Joy Business is learning that the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank will not change the Monday, July 24 date. That is supposed to announce its decision about the outcome of the meeting, as well as its decision on the policy rate. The Monetary Policy Committee, at its last meeting in May, kept the rate at 29.5%. However, there are strong indications that, looking at the current pressure on inflation rate, the Monetary Policy Committee will take steps to reduce the policy rate. We also understand that issues about the Ghana cedi, Ghana fiscal situation, and inflation rate dynamics will dominate the three-day meeting. A while longer with the Bank of Ghana because Deputy Director of Banking Supervision at the Central Bank, Ismail Adam, has underscored the need for banks to engage in responsible lending. According to him, banks must consider the sustainability of the banking environment when advancing loans. He was speaking at an industry engagement on sustainable banking principles.
The Bank of Ghana, in partnership with the Ghana Association of Banks, organized a capacity building training for industry players to delve deeper into the principles of sustainable banking. The training also provided industry players with the opportunity to collaborate and promote development. In an interview, Deputy Director of Banking Supervision at the Bank of Ghana, Ismail Adam, said banks must ensure that their lending practices have a positive impact on the environment.
Somewhere 2018, the need for banks to engage in responsible lending. And responsible lending here is in reference to managing your lending practices, that you have the sustainability of the environment in mind. And so somewhere 2018, the Bank of Ghana, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Ghana Association of Banks came together and started this journey of making sure that the lending activities of banks are in line with certain principles that will make sure that we leave the environment in a shape that will not be disadvantageous to posterity. The banks are aware that when they are engaging in lending practices, they need to look at the impact on the environment. Of course, we have 5 critical areas that the principle focuses on. So now the banks at least are aware that in our lending practices, we need to look at these areas, these 5 critical areas, and make sure that our lending processes are responsible.
Chief Executive of the Ghana Association of Banks, John Ewa, encouraged the bankers to adhere strictly to the 7 sustainable banking principles to help maintain confidence in the sector. The 7 sustainable banking principles are critical in managing risks effectively.
Now, review some of the tax measures outlined in the 2023 budget. That's advice from some speakers at Joy Business Pre-Budget Forum as Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta gets ready to present the mid-year budget review next Tuesday. Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mark Bedu Abuaji, maintained that most firms are collapsing as a result of the tax measures.
Government should do everything possible to bring some relief to businesses. Some taxes that I want to see, some abolished and some review. One is the e-levy. I think that the rate is too high. The other one has to do with the COVID tax. I don't know why we still have COVID tax or COVID levy as part of our tax structure. After it has been declared by WHO that COVID is not a pandemic, we have to take this tax out to bring some relief to businesses. Secondly, if you look at our policy document nowadays, there's a general statement that you are going to create a conducive environment for businesses. We all know what a conducive environment is. Low taxes, low inflation, lower interest rates, lower utility tariffs. With all the things that are happening, I don't think that we are going to have that immediately. So that general statement, I personally do not want to say it. They should come out with specifics on how they are going to create this conducive environment for businesses.
Joining the call to reduce taxes, the president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, Joseph Obeng, argued that there are too many unfavorable taxes in the 2023 budget, making Ghanaian businesses uncompetitive.
What we should all know is that a vibrant private sector drives any economy in the world. So it is important that we create the enabling environment that will make businesses thrive so that we take the whole economy along. And that is what we are not getting right now. That rather the private sector is being contained and that they are unable to expand. We don't have even the space to develop and grow. And that has been the problem because the excessive taxation, this is what it does to the private sector because we are not competitive. If even we want to produce as a nation, we cannot overprice our produce. That we cannot even sell our produce to the neighboring countries because of cost of the produce like the manufacturers have been complaining about. And that's why we continue complaining about excessive taxation. And we can easily also expand the tax net without necessarily putting a lot of pressure or imposing taxes on the few that have the capacity even to grow. Because they are the identified ones who can actually pay the taxes. But when we do that, we are only trying to stifle the growth of those industries which otherwise will be the driving force of our economy. Now we're talking about importation. Importation, I have a serious problem with importation because if we do more importation, it means that we are not helping our local manufacturing companies. We are not even trying to be self-sufficient.
But that is what you do.
Yes, I like that. But let me also tell you that the import that happens in this Ghana, you know, we do not own this economy. Ghanaians do not own this economy.
That is true. That is a fact.
The export earnings, we owe only about 60% as a nation. The rest does not belong to Ghanaians. That's why we always have the problem of foreign exchange because it goes and it does not even come because the money does not belong to us. Importation that we do, the excessive importation, only about 20% is for the indigents. Over 20% and the 80% all belong to foreigners. And so, whilst we are talking about exports being in the hands of foreigners, the foreign dominance of this economy, you think about communication. This communication industry, the money that goes there, even the banking is not in our hands. We talk about oil, we talk about gold and all that. We are not getting the benefit thereof. And that we have to even think about that. So if we think that we are doing excessive importation, that is not helping the economy, there's a way to do that. That's what we have to use our regulations, our investment laws, and the rules and regulations to contain excessive importation. Now we are talking about import substitution. It's in the right direction. If we are able to identify where we have the comparative advantage as a nation and even support those industries so that we become a hub of manufacturing of those identified products, then of course we have a way. And then, of course, government should do everything so that Ghanaian businesses or investment, foreign direct investment, should be tied up with the local businesses.
Okay. Meanwhile, President of the Association of Ghana Industries, Dr. Humphrey Enyimdake, indicated that Ghana's 17th International Monetary Fund program has helped reduce the negative impact of the country's macroeconomic condition on businesses. He, however, maintained that government still needs to address some structural rigidities to help businesses navigate the difficult macroeconomic conditions.
Businesses have been stressed within the context of the macro. They led to a lot of contraction into our business operation. It led to low growth. It led to low unemployment. You can also trace that it led to the distortion of original business model of processing and manufacturing, where you realize that by virtue of these macro indicators, a number of businesses resorted to importation of finished product as against processing and producing, and its relevant impact in terms of job creation, taxation, and it's exposed the country to a lot of informality. And there are consequences of a high informal sector in an economy, at least developing economy. So these ramifications are all associated with the gains and the minuses of what we've gone through over the period. And therefore, yes, our businesses are stressed, but by virtue of the IMF transaction, restored confidence, to which we are planning effectively. And we look forward to other indicators that are work in progress, because the IMF process is not a one-time transaction, it's a process. We need to go back into the inflationary rates. What do we need to do regarding the inflationary rate? You asked my colleague about the effect of the inflation on our businesses. And that, I mean, every player in the space knows that the higher the inflation, the challenges it is to businesses. Nonetheless, our concern is how is Bank of Ghana managing the inflationary issues. And we know they've deployed a number of tools to aid curtail the inflationary figures. Nonetheless, the producer price index and the run-through effect of some tax adjustment has also led to the state of the inflation. We've also argued out on the inflation targeting model that the Bank of Ghana uses. Nonetheless, we still believe that there are structural rigidities that needs to be tackled. And those are the engagement we seek to see the finance minister table in the midterm budget, complementing it with that of the IMF policy and report to aid us navigate these difficult macroeconomic factors that we face.
Now, outlining some challenges faced by small and medium businesses, CEO of Etheria, Nanong Falong, said high interest rates are collapsing SMEs. According to her, the current economic situation have led to layoff of workers affected by low production outputs.
The coping has been to reduce the staff size, because we can't afford to pay all of them month on month.
By about how much have you downsized?
5 people.
And what does that mean in terms of the real numbers you have?
It means that we are not able to produce as quickly as we do. It also means that if we get an order today that requires us to supply tomorrow, it's going to take a longer turnaround time, because we do not have all the hands that we typically use. So you'll find that we are a little slower. Sometimes responses are also a little slower because people send you messages, are expecting responses from the business, and you don't have all the staff that you used to have before.
You're still watching Business Live. More after this break. Let's touch on our pre-budget discussion once more. And Professor Godfred Bokun said government can demonstrate goodwill by reducing its administrative size to redirect resources to critical sectors of the economy.
The approach we have adopted is suboptimal, and that is why we agree with the private sector that the approach government has adopted under the program would disproportionately affect the private sector and undermine private sector competitiveness, and that is a cause for concern for us. And also, whilst we have advocated for expenditure cuts, the kind of expenditure cut government has done under the program is actually not the kind of expenditure cut we had wished. Okay.
What kind of expenditure cuts would you have wanted to see?
We were expecting more of the government reducing the size, merging some ministries, some agencies, departments, and then costing that, and probably we may achieve the same goal, okay, by reducing those expenditure as compared to increasing taxes, introducing new taxes, and increasing rates of existing taxes.
Professor Bokpin, let me just take you on there. Let me just take you on there briefly. In terms of our tax bracket, you already know how much we rake in vis-a-vis our budgets for every year. And it's been said, this government has said time and again that, listen, just cutting off a few ministers is not going to cut it. It's not going to make any difference. How much do the ministers earn? How much do they consume on fuel and all of that? So is it realistic when you call for this and say that it would have maybe amounted to some of what we would be looking for in terms of our tax returns and all of that? How realistic is that?
If you look at it from the approach you are coming from, we are majoring on the minor. We are not just asking reducing the number of ministers. We are talking about ministries, we are talking about departments, we are talking about agencies, and also rationalizing state-owned enterprises. In other words, the cost of our governance is just too much for our national budget to sustain.
On his part, the General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union, Edward Kariwe, called for a national discourse to create a new economic development policy. According to him, the country has lost direction in governance, making government rely on outmoded economic policies.
I think that we are applying an outmoded economic development policies to try to develop ourselves. You know, if we think that we can still go with this fixation that you can generate revenue by increasing your taxes and tax the same people all the time, certainly it is telling us that it's not working. You know, yes, revenue will automatically come up, and it will come up when your capacity to generate the revenue is strengthened, you know. But it's not just about how much you are going to tax the person that would necessarily translate into your revenue. When the person does not have capacity to do what? To contain that tax. You know, so I would think that we need to review our economic policy to know that tax is good to generate revenue, but tax should not be the first call to generate revenue. It is rather to empower production to go on. Unfortunately, the figures as we receive them from the statistical service are not giving good account of what is happening in production. You know, all the productive areas are declining, and yet they are the very people that you are taxing. You know, and as I indicated also, it seems they are not interested in getting to those who are not paying taxes at all. You know,
because it's easier to go after the Mr. Magbedu Abuaji and then you as well.
Yes, of course. I pay my taxes all the time, you know, and any consumption I do, I pay taxes on it, you know, and even people who I give money to feed also pay taxes on it. So all the time, even when you are sleeping, you pay tax. When you are awake, you pay tax. You pay tax in the morning, you pay tax in the afternoon, you pay tax anywhere you go, you pay tax. You know, and that is not how you can grow the economy. I think that we need a national discourse to actually fashion out an appropriate economic development policy for this country. You know, the way we are moving on, and thinking that it is only taxes that can generate the revenue that we need. Of course, we are killing businesses all over.